What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your host, Mike. You're listening to the unscripted, unfiltered, 100% authentic. First things first, we are ever so close to college football. College football is literally right around the corner. The best time of the year, in my opinion, the best sport in the country, if not the world. To all your soccer lovers, there you have it. But nonetheless, it's going to be a fun show. It's an honor to having the Troy Boyz on the podcast. We'll be talking everything Troy football. Troy is a part of the Sun Belt Conference, in case you guys really didn't know. Is part of the Sun Belt Conference and reigning Sun Belt champions. So without further ado, it's my honor to have Trojan Joe and Seabass, two of the three co-hosts of the Troy Boyz on the Air Raid. Guys, first off, welcome to the show, and how's your Wednesday going along?
Hump day couldn't be much better. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely excited to be here, ready to talk a little Troy football.
Most definitely, and Troy football, of course, here in Big 12, soon to be SEC country, just doesn't get much love. But Mike Gundy, he may recognize Troy from time to time. But without further ado, tell the listeners a little about you guys yourself and the show before we kick things off.
Yeah, so the Troy Boyz, we started going, I think this is our third season. So, I mean, I give us credit because we kind of started in like the worst of times for Troy football. Chip Lindsey was there. We couldn't win a coin toss. I mean, it was a tough time, and we started making this pod. So now, finally the college football gods are rewarding us by sending us John Summerall. Who's basically perfection among men, to be our head coach and fix all the problems. So, we make a podcast that like breaks down every single game. We host, fans from the other team. So, the Sun Belt has gotten so much more active, like online and things like that. And we've had just so much fun bringing on fans from the other schools and interviewing them and talking about the different Sun Belt towns. And I mean, we've just been really, really elated to kind of be here to ride this wave that the Sun Belt Conference has made. And I can't believe that Oklahoma fans wouldn't be so familiar with the Sun Belt, given that y'all are so close to Sun Belt powerhouse, Texas State. That's y'all should be inundated by Sun Belt fans. What do you think, Seabass?
Yeah, the Texas State Bobcats, if you go listen to that preview, might be a decent team this year, Joe. It's just saying. Trojan Joe here is not the biggest fan of Texas State and really wants them removed from the Sun Belt. But, to echo what he was saying, the Sun Belt really is a growing conference, and they've done a really good job positioning themselves here in this era of conference realignment to really solidify what they are and to be more of a Southeastern regional group and not really try to branch out too much and spread our legs to the point to where we fall apart.
Well, absolutely. And that kind of kicked things off is, briefly about the conference realignment. Nothing, obviously, if anybody hasn't heard the news, you've definitely been missing out. But Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA go into the Big Ten. You got Oklahoma, of course, and Texas go into the SEC. Then you got Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado go into the Big 12 before Colorado going back to the Big 12. And who knows what's going to happen with the ACC and the remaining four teams out in the Pac-12. But real brief, I know obviously we're not done with conference realignment. I'm sure we're going to see, more throughout the year and coming years. But is this good or bad for the college football realm when you get to this? And it was a good show last night by two good friends of mine, Herb and Raj, on their podcast when they had Bama Beat Writer on. And they were talking about how a lot of people believe that the NCAA, college football at least, is trying to get to where the NFL is at, maybe the NFC, AFC, and that could be your two super conferences and everybody else is out for themselves type of thing. But for now, is all this conference realignment good or bad for the sport? I know for the Olympic sports, it's got to be a bummer because, I know football pays the bills for a lot of universities, but these Olympic sports, I'm sure, is going to take a hit when it comes to, conference realignment.
All right, Seabass, gobble that bait up.
Yeah,
buddy.
I'll go first. Is it good or bad for college football is rather subjective. I think it depends on who you are. Is it good for the University of Alabama? Yeah, it's a great thing. They have a great brand. They have a great national and international image. They have nothing to lose here. But if you're somebody like Furman, this is a big deal. We're separating the pack further and further and further away, and to give smaller universities a chance, you're just taking it from them. And if we go in this direction of the bigger haves versus the have-nots, the opportunities for the smaller schools to play these bigger schools are going to go away. I know that the Big Ten is currently talking about basically removing all of the G5 play in the future. And then that turns into a payday for schools like Troy. That's an influx of money that the university relies on to function throughout the year. Not that we play the Big Ten regularly, but if everybody goes in that direction, that's going to be an issue for schools like ours.
Mm-hmm.
So the question then becomes, should we segregate college football from the rest? And if we do that, what kind of model does that look like? I think that that's the best move, is if you want to have a mega, college football top 60 team thing, and they go off and do their own thing and leave the rest of us down here, and we'll figure out what we're doing. I think that's the best move for everybody, so that the other sports are not impacted. If you're a softball player and let's say you're a Rutgers softball player, you now have to go play a conference game in Los Angeles, and that's a problem.
Yep.
That gets expensive. It becomes a logistical nightmare. I know everybody wants to bring up, the student athlete and go into classes and stuff. We have virtual options now. There are ways around that. But I'm just thinking the logistics, the time, the travel, the expenses, is it worth it? And then they're going to go look at other schools and institutions who have thought further ahead. And they're going to wind up losing out. So those smaller institutions in these mega conferences, like Indiana, for example, they're going to take hits. Or Illinois. These are schools that we don't think of as a traditional powerhouse. And they're going to get dinged for it because of the direction that we're going in. So I think it depends on who you are. If you're one of these programs that's locked down and you have a brand and image that's national, you're fine. Michigan's fine. Ohio State's fine. But schools like, Wake Forest might not be fine. Stanford might not be fine. Stanford was a wonderful football team 10 years ago. Yep. They were great. And they've kind of fallen off the wagon, but we're not giving them a chance to get back on the wagon anymore. And I think that for schools like that, this is a detriment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine if they want to go to 24 versus 24 and have their super whatever league and play for a championship. Great. But I do think, at some point who's the 48th team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get to the 48th best team, you're not going to be reading me some name that everybody's impressed with. You're going to be saying some name like Rutgers.
Yep.
And so my only thing is, and I could be arrested under state law here in Alabama for suggesting that we borrow something from our friends in Europe, but why don't we have promotion and relegation? If they're going to have this super league and we're going to play down here in what used to be the group of 5, well, how about the 8 teams in your super league that go, freaking 3-9 have to move down. And the teams in our league that go 12-2, like Troy did last year, they get a chance to move up. And the worst thing that can happen is these guys come up and then you're blowing them out of the water. Fine. But every now and then you're going to bring a team up and they're going to prepare for it and they're going to stick around. And you're going to have a school and a program have the opportunity to play at that highest level because they've earned it. It's ridiculous to think that, we're going to have Vanderbilt is going to be included in this 48-team mega conference because because they just are, because they were on a list of SEC schools, and how dare you question that? I mean, let's make this a meritocracy. And if it really is so much like, well, the talent is so different and this is so different, why was TCU in the national title game last year? Like, go ahead and give everybody a shot to at least earn their way there, and let's see what happens. And if y'all are all right and, y'all just beat every team that comes out of the lower division, then fine. But at least there will be some way for people to have hope. If you cut people off and you tell a school like Troy that certainly is investing in its program, go to Troy, Alabama, look at the size of the stadium versus the size of the town. That's going to tell you everything you need to know. And so if you're going to tell that program, well, there's never any hope, you're never going to get to the national title level, then at some point it's like, to quote Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park, you guys are so busy deciding if you could do it, you didn't stop to think about if you should. You're going to ruin college football just to see if you can get, $2 million extra dollars out of ESPN, and then you're going to wonder why the product isn't the same that it was.
No, I think you both are spot on, and it goes back to as fans, when's enough? I mean, you can keep expanding. The SEC, you always hear at Florida State, you always hear Clemson, Notre Dame, the biggest chip of the pot. Who knows what they're going to end up at if they even do. But at the end of the day, it's enough is enough. I mean, after a while, yeah, it's cool that for example, like my stance is, yeah, Oklahoma's going to the SEC. Whether or not they can compete in there, who knows? We'll find out. And same goes for Texas. But you add now 16. Let's go. How many more? After a while, in my opinion, enough is enough. And you get too big, it's not even fun anymore, because now you're not even playing. Everybody every 2 years. You're probably doing it at least once every, Lord, I'm sure 4 or 5 years. So I don't know.
Yep, I agree. No, we're kind of in the same mindset here. I think we're all in one accord right now.
But I will say this: enough about college football realignment.
Thank God.
Who knows where the heck it could go? And personally, I don't get paid enough to figure their minds out. But first things first, let's talk some Troy football. Give Troy all the recognition for the next, 50 minutes or so, whatever we got going here. So let's talk some Troy. 2022 overall record 12-2, 7-1 in the Sun Belt. John Summerall, first year, won the Sun Belt. Recapping the 22 season, of course, I personally can't say much, unfortunately, on my opinion, but from your guys' standpoints, recap the 22 season. Of course, I'm sure it probably exceeded all expectations from last year. And what does that look like as we head into the 23 season here in a few weeks?
Yeah, well, I'll start. So, yeah, last season when we started this, we were all high on John Summerall. It was kind of an anybody but Chip Lindsey mindset, but we at the Troy Boys were real big on John Summerall prior to the hire. So when he came in, we were ecstatic. And we knew that we needed to get back to that defensive-minded football that Troy is branded by. We thought he was the guy to do the job. So he came in, and the ultimate goal, it was the unwritten, rule that's out and about in Troy Trojan land, is the goal right now is just a bowl game. Right. If we could make 6-7 wins, the fan base will be happy. And I would have been ecstatic to have finally said, hot damn, we're going to the Camellia Bowl. Yeah, there's a chance here. But we exceeded expectations in a way that, if you go back and listen to our podcast, we were cautious every single game. We were glad we were doing well, but we felt the stumble coming somewhere, and it just never happened. We always managed to find a way to win. Coach Summerall was real big on the be where you are kind of mentality. Don't look at your past, look forward, one game at a time. And they managed to find a way to win. They were real good at halftime adjustments. Things that we had this group chat, we would be texting each other, what the hell is going on? Right. At halftime, we have no idea what's going. This is not the football we expect. And then they come back at halftime, and it's a totally different team. Arkansas State last year, it was about to derail right there at the very end of the season. Everything was about to collapse, and we were about to hand it to South Alabama. God forbid. Yeah. And we were about to just hand it to them, and then they go in the locker room, and it's like, Kansas City just walked out in the second half. It was a totally different team. So I feel like Coach Summerall and his staff did a really good job at making some adjustments when they needed to be done, and that led us to just this our era of success that we had all the way through the postseason up against UTSA.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing to say as a college football fan, because like no matter how much we want to pretend to be rational human beings, we're not,
Right.
and we wake up every Saturday morning and it doesn't matter if my team's scheduled to play Stephen F. Austin or like the literal ghost of Stephen F. Austin. I'm predicting, Troy by 50. I want to win every single game. And so it's hard to put a loss in the positive category. Seabass and I were in Oxford. We watched the Ole Miss game. We saw a lot of positives out of that.
Yes.
I then went up to Boone, North Carolina, and was there for game day, being on App State's campus, was in the stadium, in Kid Brewer Stadium, to watch that game and to watch us lose in the worst way you can lose a football game. At the very last minute, the ball bounces the wrong way and you lose the game. And you're just, hoping you can make it to your car before the, Boone Police Department escorts you out of the city. And I mean, but the thing is, as much as it was hard to do in the moment, losing that game to App was probably the most important thing we did last year.
Yes.
Because it really did bind the team together. You had a team that had been through a lot of rough years with a really terrible coach. And so you went through this loss together, and John Summerall, was able to go in that locker room and say, hey, is this feeling what you want? Because this is what we can get by average work. You can get this feeling, or we can work even harder and we can win. And so, it got those guys to a different place. Even Carlton Marshall, I mean, has the NCAA career record for tackles. I mean, that's not a guy that is tough to motivate, right? But even he played differently after that game, So I think that's when I look back on that 2022 season, there were so many great games I was at. I was at the bowl game. I watched us play La, and they went up 17-0, and we came back to beat them 23-17. So many great moments, but probably the moment I'll always remember is that loss, because in that loss is where we kind of made the grist of what would be that 12-2 season. So as hard as that is to do as a college football fan, sometimes you've got to look at the setbacks and go, this is actually what is going to propel us either this season or next season, because it's really building the men on our sidelines.
That leads, of course, to the 23 season. Let's preview the offense first. The team's overall production came, I would probably say, through late in the season. But you got, transfer, of course, Oklahoma State's Eli Russ and Kobe Smith from Auburn to help. But the pass protection, I would say probably hasn't been far better. But, of course, I'm not watching much Troy games either. But what would you guys say when it comes to the offensive mark? You got, some transfers coming in. But overall, what would you expect out of the offense this year?
I think the offense is going to be better. I think it would have to be. There's certain games last year, we beat Army 10-9.
Right.
We beat that team in Mobile 10-6. These are Iowa State scores, right? I mean, you're not expecting. In fact, some of our players were apparently wagering on the Iowa State game. So like they're already suspended. What can I do? But I think it all comes down to how good you feel, and Michael, I got to tell you, if you ever want a little heat, just journey over to troyfans.com, the hottest message board in all the land.
It is an inferno
and
every
Nice.
single day. It is
and
on fire.
you'll find plenty of people upset about all aspects, like even who's taking the trash out in the visitors concourse. But
Sweet.
you know, there's lots of excitement. Gunnar Watson,
Right.
Taylor County native, coming back for his 6th year, which on any other squad in the United States, the fans would be elated. You'd have kids at Troy Regional Hospital being named Gunnar every other day. But people have never really warmed to Gunnar. Gunnar was always seen kind of as Chip Lindsey's quarterback.
Yep.
And so because people hated Chip so much, I think that's why you say, and Gunnar does some dumb things. I mean, I was at the Cure Bowl and watched him let the snap go behind him, for a safety. So like Gunnar earns some of the ire that he gets, but I think a lot of it is just because of whose guy he is. And on Troy fans, certainly, if you start talking about Goose Crowder, that is his backup for this year. It looks
let
like
loose the goose.
Yeah, let loose the goose is going to be one of the first things you see. People are really excited about him the same way people were excited about Jarrett Dagey last year. You have kind of a fan base that can't rally around a guy even after he's been such a loyal Trojan and had such success this last year. He was the MVP of the Sun Belt Conference title game, and you still had people, middle of the second quarter, we're up 20-something points on Coastal, and people are yelling at Summerall to put in the backup. That's just kind of the relationship Gunnar has had with the fans. And I hate that for him. I think Gunnar has an opportunity to have a lot more success. Kamani Vidal is back and healthy at halfback. I think he could be really good. Jabri Barber is back at wide receiver. He's kind of a hometown hero type guy. A lot like Jarrell Jernigan, who was a legend for the Trojans, played for the New York Giants, won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants. He's a smaller guy, plays in the slot, very elusive, and he's back. He's 5'10", so I love calling him smaller because if he knocked on my front door, he could, whoop my ass. But there's also a lot of excitement about Clayton Allendike. He's a tight end. So like at Troy, we're not like really positive even like what tight ends do. It's an air raid squad. Like, if you gave Neil Brown 3 chances, he couldn't spell tight end. That's just not a position that he cares about. And so like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. He's a big guy. He's a big frame. We send him to media day. Usually you're not sending, some guy that's not going to be a factor to media day. So Ollie, as the players call him, I hope that he does really well. I think it's going to be all about kind of how do we move, how do we progress, and what does coach want to see in terms of the transition. He came in, he was the first coach Troy has had since I've been a fan in 2004 that said, we do not want to be, no offense to the pod, we don't want to be an air raid team.
Right.
Troy has been an air raid team.
Oh, yeah.
When Larry Blakeney brought us to the promised land, when we had DeMarcus Ware and Osi Umenyiora lining up on the defensive line, we were playing that air raid siren in the stadium. And, Tony Franklin was on the sideline, the godfather of the air raid.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had kind of a fan base that I think has gotten accustomed to that. And so now you had the first coach to come in and go, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to really try to run the ball. Seabass owes a fan a steak from a bet.
I do.
Lost.
I lost. I was not a big fan at first of this run first mentality. There's a lot of episodes of our podcast where I'm ripping Joe Craddock to shreds for handing the ball off downs 1, 2, and 3. But it's evolved for us offensively. And it's kind of created another dimension for us that's not really common in the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt's a pass first conference. Most teams do that. Even Georgia Southern, who has been historically an option team, has transitioned away from that the last 2 years. So I feel like if we continue down this stretch of having depth in the running core, we have a chance to be successful on offense. And I feel like that's kind of was our struggle last year, kind of talking about what Joe was talking about, how we've transitioned away from the offense that we're used to. Our team was built to catch the ball. So we weren't really set up to block up front and create some gaps for some guys. And that kind of hurt us offensively. We had a lot of low scoring games. So like Joe was saying, I feel like we're going to improve offensively.
We have to. We
there's no other
absolutely
way.
have to. And I mean, I think it's a matter of how quick do we go to it? We've got a loaded running back room. How much are we going to run? How much is this new look offensive line going to allow us to run? And what's Gunnar Watson going to do? Gunnar Watson last season, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Okay. If one of my players on NCAA 2014 had that ratio, he'd be sitting by homecoming. Okay.
Mhm.
And I love Gunnar Watson. I'm friends with his dad. But I mean, now that we're in the real deal, he's here for his 6th year. He's come back. What is it going to look like? And the final point for the offense, I think for the first time in a long time, I said this on our podcast, the man on the sideline on offense and defense, but definitely on offense that John Summerall has to worry the most about is number 0 expectations. There haven't been expectations. Just like Bass said, I mean, we were showing up to that stadium, filling Veterans Memorial Stadium, and all we wanted was to go to the Camellia Bowl and eat a really depressing meal at the IHOP in downtown Montgomery. Like, that's all that we wanted out of life, was to just tell people that we had a game coming up against Buffalo in Crampton Bowl, okay? And, like, we've made it. We made it, baby. Like, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. We are playing Buffalo in the Crampton Bowl. But now people don't have that. College football fans are the most schizophrenic people in the world.
Yes, they are.
The people that 12 months ago were like, all John Summerall has to do is not vomit on himself in public, and I will declare him Bear Bryant. Now you have those same people on message boards saying, like, well, if John Summerall doesn't get us to the playoffs with this squad, he might as well shut it down. What's he even doing? And it's like, okay, well, I'm glad we've thrown all rational thinking out the window, because that was boring. So, like, what does he do? Because, it's always fun to come in and be the renegade and the rebel and have everybody tell you, Coach, just go out there and have a good time. Like, but now you've got folks that are putting money into this program, serious money. And they're saying, hey, 12-2, we liked that. Do it again,
Or
dance
else.
monkey. And when you get to the dance monkey position, that's tough, and like, how is he going to respond to that? And how are his players going to respond to that? That's going to be the most interesting question of this season.
Yep. The response question,
Coach Summerall, if you're listening to this, I would never, ever say dance monkey to you, and I apologize that I even intimated that. You're my favorite person ever, and I would do anything that you asked me to do. I'll name my first children John, whether male or female. Either one will be John. So Seabass, take it away before I embarrass myself further in front of God, Emperor Summerall.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great, Coach Summerall. It's a pleasure to know that you're listening to me right now. So just to finish and wrap up all of the offensive thoughts right here, the response thing, like Joe was talking about, is huge, because, as we said, the last loss we had was against App State. And we're going to lose a game this season.
Right.
It's going to happen. So what's going to happen once we lose that game? How do we respond at that point? Do we hang our hat, or do we keep going? And that's the one thing I'm worried about, because I'd worried all last year we were going to stumble at some point, but it never happened. We constantly went out there and did the thing we needed to do, but I don't know that grit's going to be there, because we just have the expectation of winning. We expect to go out there and win, but now everybody has our name circled on a calendar. Doesn't matter who we are, and I'm worried that that's not been the case the last couple of years. And now we're going to get their best game every single week. And I'm worried that we're not going to do the right things we need to do to make offensively be what we need to be. I don't know how else to say that. I think we can. I think all the pieces are there. We just got to execute. We can do it, but we'll see how it goes.
Real quick, losing Tez Johnson to Oregon, is that going to affect your guys' receiving core this year?
Who are you talking about?
Never heard
Tez
of him.
Johnson.
Who's that?
Yeah, he must have. Yeah, he must have been on the scout team or something.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, don't let
Fair
the door
enough.
hit
Go
you on
ahead,
the way
Steve,
out.
Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead, Steve.
there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing to say. Yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out. We'll replace you. Everyone's
No.
replaceable.
We're being jilted lovers here.
We really are.
You know, Tez. I don't think Tez's season warranted him getting a Power 5 pickup. I will say
Right.
that. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns last year. I had 4 touchdowns last year. All right. But I mean, he wasn't Rajay Johnson. Rajay Johnson showed up from UAB and absolutely killed it, and was, I mean, the spark on our offense. Tez was a really good player. He was adopted by, and I definitely do not want to start this conversation, but he was adopted by the Nix family. So like Bo Nix, he grew up with Bo Nix as his brother. And so, I mean, I think there's definitely part of like why he ended up in Oregon. But like, there's the rational part of my brain that says that and like wishes Tez all the best. And there's the Troy part of my brain that's like, I hope you trip going up the stairs every day. Because like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he just seemed like such a Troy guy. I sat next to his mom at I sat next to his mom at App State and cheered with her. And so for him to leave and go to Oregon, I mean, I think it'll definitely hurt us. We're bringing a lot of guys in. Landon Parker, who's coming in from Wofford. If you're listening to this podcast, go to YouTube, type in Landon Parker, and prepare to be absolutely amazed. I mean, this goofy looking white dude at Wofford who plays wide receiver and punter just for fun. I mean, is absolutely a maniac. I mean, just stealing circus catches from cornerbacks and safeties. And I think he's going to be somebody that we lean on a lot. Are we going to miss Tez Johnson? For sure. I mean, anybody that you have in the slot that has that much experience, that knows the offense, you're going to miss him. But I mean, that's another whole thing about the transfer portal. It has you like, only the transfer portal could have men in their late 30s having really passionate negative feelings about 20-year-old kids who are like,
For real.
I hate you. Like, and it's like, I mean, this kid just went to get, his freaking creative materials degree from Oregon. Leave him alone. But I mean, to end that, I will say, like, you know what, stick to it. You got a scholarship. I know your brother is going to go play over there, but like, you just stick with the Trojans. I hope he enjoys. It'll be nice because he can show players at Oregon what a conference title ring looks like. So I mean, that'll be fun.
Oh, God damn.
He said it. He is on it tonight.
Oh, I like that one. I'm gonna have to Joe, you just got yourself a clip. I'm gonna have to
Nice.
get that
Aggregate, folks. Let's get it out there.
What are we at? 33-14. So 33.
That's right.
So 33-ish.
Yeah.
33-ish. So there you go, Joe. You got yourself a clip on that one.
I appreciate that, buddy.
Previewing the I love this show. Previewing the defensive side. You're looking at the defense. I would always say maybe, I can't really for sure say that they're probably more impressive than what the stats probably look like. They finished second in the Sun Belt. Of course, I believe behind Marshall, not 100% on that one. But
we beat them, so
yeah.
From what I saw, you guys looked pretty good getting to the backfield, even though at times struggled on third downs. Overall, looking at this defense for this year, how you guys stacking?
So defensively, we're just losing a bunch of quality players. Just to name a couple, Joe said it earlier, Carlton Marshall, all-time tackles leader in college football, KJ Robertson at linebacker, and the tackle Will Cholo. And those are a couple of really big, stout starters that we have on defense that we've lost and we need to replace. Joe said it earlier, Ian mentioned it. The safety Reggie Bracey has been suspended for sports wagering allegations. Can't do that. It's not okay.
That's a
Hammer the under.
That's a no-no. And then we've also have TJ Jackson has been suspended as well for an unspecified team rule he's broken. And we're going to leave it at that. And we've not stated how long either of them are going to be suspended for. So I'm just going to factor them as not playing. and then from there, if they come back, they come back. So now we just got to figure out who's going to fill these spots. The defensive end Zach Edward looks like a great opportunity for us. The defensive end Deshaun the Reaper Battisti from New Orleans looks like another great option for us. The Reaper. So we've got plenty of players. We just got to plug them into the right spots. Jubinor is back again in the bandit position. Buda Jones, the tackle, is going to be back again. There's a lot of quality players that we have. We've just got to fill the holes that we've created on defense, and we should be stout again on defense. It's just the question is how long is it going to take us to fill these spots? I mean, if you look at our roster, there's Del Pettis, Javon Solomon, Reddy Stewart. I mean, there are players that are household names right now in Trojan Nation that are coming back on defense again. So I feel like we have another good defensive year. We just need the offense to catch up, and then I feel like we're going to be back to being the Trojan wall, baby.
How did you miss the coolest secondary player name in all of the Sun Belt in O'Shea Fletcher?
I'm sorry.
O'Shea Fletcher is back to bring his mighty shillelagh against any wide receiver that dare comes over the middle of the field. All right.
I'm sorry. I forgot Luis Medina too. I mean, there are names everywhere. Jaden McDonald. I mean, there are kids everywhere.
I hope they both show up at your pond.
Hey,
bring it on. Not going to go well for you. Okay?
No, it's not. And they're bringing Gasparotto with them too. I mean, they're going
to. That guy is super jacked. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the defense is going to continue to be. That's one thing. My wife is a Colorado grad, so she's for the first time. I talked about expectation being on our sideline. Expectation is like trying to get a map to show it how to get to Boulder because it hasn't been there in so long. And I mean, I think expectations are there. And she asked me, what position group will really look best, and I said, well, it's going to be cornerbacks, right? Because I mean, Deion Sanders knows how to coach cornerbacks, so I mean, he's going to do that really well. John Summerall is a linebacker, so it's no coincidence that his first year with the Trojans, we have a linebacker break the all-time tackle record. I think you're going to see a lot of strength from that front seven because John Summerall knows how to coach that position because he played that position. I think we've got enough strength in the back end of the defense. I hate that TJ's out. I don't know what TJ did. If I was not so absolutely terrified of John Summerall, I would ask him about it in a press conference, but I am. So I'm going to let it go and just let him suspend him for the rest of his life. I can't handle it. But I mean, TJ, we're going to miss because he's an absolute weapon. He's better. TJ Jackson is a better defensive threat than any offensive lineman that's in the Sun Belt. And that's just guaranteed. Yeah. And we're going to miss him until he comes back. But you don't get this is one of the problems. And Michael, I'm sure you've seen this being a Oklahoma guy. You don't really get, as much as you hate when players are suspended and players are disciplined, it's like you don't get the Oklahoma team that you want to see out there unless there's that level of discipline.
Exactly.
So while you may miss a guy being out there for a game, it's like him not being out there is what is going to make a team that you're proud of. So it's like it's hard because you want the best guys out there, but sometimes you do have to just, let them sit. If coach says they have to sit, does it give you a better chance to win this Saturday? Sure. But coach is worried about a Saturday next year, and so you have to, at some point, you just have to go, coach knows best. And that's hard to do, though, because like we've already established, we are all criminally insane following the sport.
Well, and that's a good point because, I mean, that's a good thing you brought up is the fact, I mean, coming from an OU fan, we should know for, prime examples, the Chick-fil-A Bowl that was 2019 when we got cremated by LSU. Half of our defense and half of our offense players were suspended for personal stuff. So, look what happens when that happens. You're just tough out of luck. But yes, I agree.
How did you go to that game?
No, I will say this humbly. Probably glad I did it. I was actually thinking about it though. I did go to last year's Red River Shootout. And You know, that was.
I'm
didn't
just
end well for
curious.
you.
The
Like,
food
I'm
went
so-
well. I mean, that's about.
Yeah.
That's about
I'm
as much
so-
as I can
Hey,
get.
we like food around here. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sorry for hijacking your podcast.
No, you're good.
I mean, I think everybody that loves college football wants to talk about this, and that is, have you ever been to a game where LSU fans were? And how much did you hate it? Because they're the worst, right?
Yeah, you know, I've heard. I haven't been to a game to answer your question, so
Okay.
but I know next year we go down to Death Valley, and that's my. If there's
Well-
one game I go to next year, that's the one I want to go to. If that
I'll-
happens,
yeah.
I'm sure I'm gonna feel it pretty.
I'll
close.
tell you, it's
definitely
not that.
go.
Yeah, it's not that difficult to win there. I mean, it can be done.
What up?
See,
Yeah,
that's
but
my
it
little
is
flip on
it's tough. Like they are really, it's everything you've heard about them. You're like, it can't be that bad. And then you experience them firsthand. And you're like, this is a war crime. Like,
Yeah.
why are they allowed to run around the country just doing this wherever they want? It's terrible. I hope they're listening to your pod, and I hope they email only you, because I can't
Find me-
read Creole. So do not email me like your boudin crawfish. I don't understand that.
Find me on Twitter, LSU fans, Undefeated Mike, and Air Raid Podcast, and feel free
Right.
to
At him.
yes,
at
at
him.
me.
Yeah, and don't find us on Twitter.
Do not
at
do not
Troy Boyz
find us on
Podcast.
X or Meta or anywhere else. Just eat your etouffee and shut up.
Well, you know, 29%. I'm looking at the geographic location that's listening to this podcast from Louisiana. 29% is from Baton Rouge. So apparently,
Oh
they're-
shit!
they're-
Yeah. Hey, guys, don't worry. They're listening, like hoping for news that the war in the Pacific is over. Okay, like I mean, it's 1944 in Baton Rouge. Like, don't have no concern. You're
That's
gonna be
right.
fine.
But I mean, on another note, thank you for the paycheck. We appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed
Yes.
homecoming.
We've
It
used
was,
it real
was
well.
a fun time for us. Go Trojans, and go fuck yourself.
Whoa.
you suck, LSU.
Oh, this is nice, right?
This is fun.
This is
We're having fun. Who would have thought?
well, and you know, what's funny is their head coach does those 360 dance things, and he can't dance. But anyway,
I mean, neither can I, but
I will
also
say
not a college football head coach.
I will say this: the most obnoxious, for the exception of Texas. I mean, that can go both ways for Texas fans towards us and vice versa. Florida State fans, 2010, when they came to Norman in 2010, now they were pretty obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad they
Okay.
all left at halftime, but I mean, they were still obnoxious. But still, no, Florida State fans would be my. Air Force was cool. Army was cool. Who else? Texas Tech can get pretty rowdy, but no,
in the
Florida
shadows
State
of Mike
wins
Leach.
that one. Oh yeah, yeah. Shout out, absolutely.
Swing your sword.
Swing your sword, baby.
What would happen if Grambling State goes to beats LSU? That'd be kind of hilarious. So anyway,
Yeah, we're not going down that road.
yeah. I will say this on your guys because you know, your guys' mascot is pretty jacked. His arms are like massive, like John Cena
T-Roy.
massive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
T-Roy. Yeah, don't fuck with him.
T-Roy
either.
spends a lot of time in the gym, and that sword is very heavy. I mean, comparative to his skin. So I mean, T-Roy is pretty excitable. He got in a fight with the Chanticleer at the Sun Belt Conference Championship, and that went really
Nice.
well. So I mean, everybody at Troy, basically, like I've already said, is completely unhinged, detached from reality, and just ready to start fights. So I mean, basically, I'm so looking forward to this year. I mean, every time I go to a game, I'm like, what do I need? Do I need my ID? Do I need bail money? Like what? I mean, we're just having a great time.
And I had no bail
and-
money in Atlanta, and I almost needed it.
You
Like, it
sure
was-
didn't.
I
You
did.
sure
I
did
did
not.
not. I mean, and
I was
speaking
not
of
gonna help.
I mean, speaking of unhinged Troy fans, I'm about to go unhinged real quick. Big Game Boomer. I'm going to call him out. I'm sorry, you're an Oklahoma fan too.
Oh,
I
His-
probably know where this is going. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
his rankings of mascots. He got that. What? T. Roy at 120. We're behind the Cow Bear. Have you seen that thing? That thing looks like it has been in a Chuck E. Cheese for 22 years. And we've decided, hey, we're going to put this on a college kid and put it out there on the field and cheer people up. That thing scares people, Paul. I mean, you put T. Roy down there at 120. What's Sparty got that we don't?
Yeah. I'm with you.
He just put us down there because he has no idea who T. Roy. He probably never heard of Troy. You kidding me? I'm about to go unhinged on the. I kept my tongue on Twitter. I was about to lose it.
Yeah, no. Big game boomer. T. Roy is coming after you. You're not welcome in Pike County, Alabama.
Yeah. Hey, your power shuts off about 5, 6 o'clock at night, and you look out the window and you see T. Roy on the street. You know what's happening.
Right.
You know it's coming. You're
about to get stuck. Gig 'em.
All right, there it is. Unhinged fandom. I'm going to put it back now.
And we're talking mascots here. In the Royal Rumble, who would actually win that?
Like a Sunbelt Royal Rumble or like everybody all together?
Oh, God. Gus the Eagle's pretty good.
I'm sure your guys' mascot would probably do well nationally, but I have a feeling that a lot of national mascots would cheat, though. So
Red Wolf. The Red Wolf is going to be tough. That's not going to respond to the Trojan Steel very well. I mean, the Chanticleer is dead immediately. The Chanticleer is not happening.
Right. Yosef didn't even show up.
Oh, yeah, no. That guy's like just living in the holler, drinking Mountain Dew. He's not showing up.
The Alley Cats, they're in the alley.
Yeah, the Mobile Alley Cats, they're getting neutered. We got the Panthers. Panthers an impressive beast.
You got the golden eagle and the other eagle.
I think we can probably skewer the Eagles with the Trojan sword.
I mean, the Warhawk too. All three of them.
The Warhawk, I think we can get the Warhawk too. The Raging Cajun. I mean, that just sounds like the assistant coach from the Waterboy. Right. So I'm not really afraid of him. I don't know. I mean, I think the Red Wolf. The Red Wolves are our biggest problem, and it's plural, so it's like multiple wolves. That I think is a problem.
That's right. Beating that thing would be inconceivable.
It would be, yeah. Well, and look, if you were a wolf that lived in Jonesboro, you'd be pretty hungry. So I mean, it'd be like a Sarah McLachlan commercial. So I mean, I think I think T. Roy finishes probably right behind the pack of Red Wolves. They're going to be tough to take out. This is great.
This is fun. This is top quality material.
This is why the medium was invented.
We forgot about the buffalo. Look at us. We straight forgot about the buffalo from Marshall.
Oh, because he hadn't shown up yet. I mean, buffalo is slow. Those Red Wolves would be nipping at that buffalo.
That's right. ODU, they got the lion, the monarch, the lion. Yeah, I forgot about them too. ODU. I forget the new people exist. What's JMU? What is their mascot?
They are the Dukes. I think they're a dog. That's not going to last very long. Right.
Yeah.
ODU's mascot. ODU's mascot's going to go back through the cabinet, get back into Narnia. Like they're not going to compete. I mean, I think it's T. Roy versus the Red Wolves for me. And I think who knows how it ends up. I think it's not good for PETA, but maybe not good for the Trojans. So
who would win? The final mascot question for you guys. Who would win, USC's Trojan or Troy's? Hell in a Cell, 60 minutes.
I'm almost insulted.
Yeah, no, ours would. When our players win trophies, they don't have to give them back. So, so we would win.
I mean, we would have beaten Tulane. I'll say that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, we would have dog walked Tulane.
I mean, for Christ's sakes, Southern Miss beat them, and we took care of them. So transitive property. We beat everybody. There it is.
Yeah, Troy versus everybody. No, it's not even a question. Their Trojan is not a real Trojan. I mean, his name's Tommy. From the
Trojans.
From the Sicilian side of Troy. I just don't trust it. Do not like USC at all.
No.
We are the men of Troy. They are not. At me.
At Troy Boyz Podcast.
At Troy Boyz Podcast with a Z because it's hip.
Lincoln Riley, Adam. Troy, the remaining. So looking at the Troy's 2023 season, what would be the keys, the key to the season to have a successful season this year?
I guess I'll go first, and I'm going to take the easy answer. It's going to be what I said earlier. We've got to fill the holes in defense, build the stout D line that Troy has branded itself with, and shut everybody down that comes in. We're going to have some quality offensive opponents. I can't believe I'm going to say it out loud, but South Alabama is going to have a decent offense this year. JMU always has a decent offense, but JMU's small, so I think we can take care of them. I really think that our biggest offensive opponents are going to be South and Western Kentucky. And if we can control them, I think we'll be fine. But the question, like I said, is can we fill the holes fast enough and be comfortable as a defense to stop everything that comes in?
Yeah. So I'll take a key on the other side. I think, what does Gunnar Watson do? Is Gunnar Watson going to be the same player people have complained about him being for 5 years? Or is he going to take a step forward? Coach Summerall seems really impressed with him, says that he's changed the way he's eating, says he's changed the way he's behaving in the weight room, and that he's like a different player. Do we see that on the field? Does he start making better decisions? Because Troy doesn't need him to be, he doesn't have to be Peyton Manning. He won the Sun Belt Championship game MVP by completing 13 passes. He just didn't make a bunch of mistakes. So does he continue moving in that direction? I think that's the offensive key. The one key we didn't say, because I guess it's, the coaching staff probably would prefer that we didn't, is, how serious is this team rule that TJ Jackson broke? How mad at him are we? Are we 1 game mad? Are we 2 games mad? Are we 6 games mad? Because he's a big difference maker. Him being out here versus his backup is a huge difference. So, if all of a sudden, we get through the first half of Stephen F. Austin and TJ Jackson comes trotting out, that's going to be a huge difference for the team. I mean, you agree, Bass?
Yeah, I would say so. Whenever you lose a quality player, you got to fill the gap. And I feel like we're kind of in the same situation of what I said before, in that you can't be successful unless you know who's doing what. You're very comfortable with what's going on around you. And I feel like from what we've heard from spring training and what we've heard from fall practices is we're getting there, but it's not quite there yet. Coach talks a lot about offense here lately, which gets me concerned because we've not talked a lot about defense in fall practices. But at the same time, everyone's curious about the offense. So I understand why he's talking a lot about it, because Troy fans as a whole, that's their biggest question mark, is what is the offense going to look like this year, because it was so different last year. But I think on the whole, if everybody shows up and is comfortable with what's going on around them, which alludes back to probably why Gunnar Watson's been our guy for a while. Everyone seems comfortable with him in the QB position on the field, not in the stands. We don't matter, because at the end of the day, we're just there to support the Trojans. But if the guys in the slot are comfortable with who's throwing the ball to them, that at the end of the day is going to matter more to team dynamic than us cheering or hating on them. So I think if everybody's comfortable with who's where and what, I think we'll be fine. But are we there yet? That's my question.
Looking at the 23 season as we're winding down the show, real quick before we go to the 23 schedule, courtesy of College Football News some fun stats for the 2022 Trojans. Fourth quarter, you guys outscored your opponents 131-51. Fumbles, the opponents had 25. They lost 13 of them. Troy had 13 fumbles and lost 9. And then fourth down conversions was pretty impressive. That's as Troy's 17 of 26. And that equaled out to be 65%. And the opponents were 15 of 29 and 52%. So that's pretty impressive on that fourth down conversion. Looking at the season schedule for Troy for 23, the best part is that for you guys, I'm sure, as well as there's no Appalachian State, there's no Coastal Carolina, there's no Marshall, and there's no Georgia Southern. I know courtesy of the Sun Belt preseason poll, have them as a threat to potentially win the Sun Belt. What would be the over/under win total that you guys would have? Of course, non-conference consists of Stephen F. Austin going to Kansas State, and then Western Kentucky, and then midway through this season is at Army. What would be the win total, and is it possible that you guys could easily, in my opinion, go 11-1?
Whoa,
Joe, I'll let you go first.
No, I think that is yeah, I mean, there's a lot of confidence around the squad right now. We did our preseason pod. I picked us to go 10-2. I think that was pretty aggressively camp. I think I was definitely very optimistic. I think the out of conference schedule is really good for us. I think we've got games we can win. I think Kansas State is probably a loss. We get James Madison at home, and that's quickly becoming kind of a pseudo rivalry just because of how much Troy people hate James Madison fans online. And then we're bringing the team from Mobile up for the battle for the belt on Thursday night. They've got to come to our stadium. But I mean, that's a weird kind of rivalry thing. I think maybe the most recent time that they've won the belt, they did it in Troy, if I remember correctly. So the visiting team kind of has an advantage in that rivalry. But I still think, and I'm going to go against Bass on this one because I know how many he picked. I think 9 is kind of the floor for me, where I would say, we really reached our potential. I think 9 wins. I think anything less than that, we didn't really take advantage of the talent we had and certainly the schedule we had. Bass, I know you were at 8 wins.
Yeah, I'm at 8.
Go ahead and defend yourself as a pessimistic Troy fan.
Yeah, sorry. I have us at 8 wins. I see us falling to Kansas State, even though I think Kansas State is a winnable game. Kansas State loses a lot of players, and I feel like that's being overlooked just because they were the Big 12 champion last year. But they're basically going to be a new team this year, and the question again is going to be, are they ready to go? And so I think Kansas State's a winnable game. James Madison is a winnable game. It's going to be tight and close. They're going to come. James Madison's going to be that team. If you look at their schedule, they have easy wins right in front of them. So they're going to come into our stadium 2-0, thinking that they won the East because, Keith Gill gave them the title of East Division champion, even though they couldn't technically hold the title. And they ain't played nobody, Paul. But they're going to let them have it. So they're going to come in saying we have the chance now to take off, the big wig, and they're going to give us their best game. I think Western Kentucky's another game we could easily lose to. Georgia State's going to be a cakewalk. Arkansas State's going to be a cakewalk. Army's revamping their offensive scheme right now. They're traditionally that option team, but they're switching to the shotgun this year. So Army's going to lose their identity this year, and they're going to take a lot of steps back from what they've been in the past. So I think Army is a very achievable game for us. Texas State, I think, is that tricky team. I know Joe's going to start moaning and groaning right now, but they have a new coach. The town of San Marcos, Texas, is rallying around this new coach, just like we did John Summerall last year. Now, they don't have the talent that we had, but he's bringing in a lot of new players. That transfer portal's been hit hot, and he's really recruiting local Southwest Texas. He's really trying to pull in people local to drive what they're growing right there at Texas State. So I feel like that's going to be a team that in 3-4 years time is going to be different than what we know it as right now. So if Texas State can get rolling fast, their schedule is set up in a way that right before us, it's easy. They have opportunities to breathe. They have opportunities to set themselves up to be successful against Troy. It's a home game for them, so we're going to be the ones to travel. Troy to Texas State is the longest inter-divisional game in driving distance in the Sun Belt Conference. So that is the longest stretch we have to play every single year. So that's going to be tiring on us. It's a 2 p.m. kickoff. So it's setting itself up for me to be a disaster waiting to happen, especially if we walk in thinking this is just Texas State. So that's a game we could very easily lose, in my opinion. South Alabama, we said it earlier, is a team that it's a rivalry game. Yeah. And like Joe said, in the battle for the belt rivalry, the away team has typically won this thing. We've called it the curse of the away team. It's just one of those things. If you're the away team, you have a solid chance of winning that game. So South, I'm worried about Louisiana Monroe. As much as I love Terry Bowden, that ain't it, Paul. Monroe's an easy win for us. Lala's gonna be another easy win for us. And Southern Miss, I don't like those guys. So Everyday Eagles podcast, cool people, go take a listen. So I have us at going 8-4 this year because there's just a lot of opportunities for us to trip and fall, and we're gonna do it this year. It's gonna happen. So I think we're gonna be at the wrong place at the wrong time too many times for other people. And I think we're going to trip and fall.
With that being said, what bowl game you guys are shooting for this year?
I think we're. Yeah, go ahead.
I think any of them. It's so weird. We talked about conference realignment earlier. Mm-hmm. Another thing that's changed a lot is bowls, like where bowls pick. Because Troy had a great year last year. We went to the Cure Bowl, and because of how early it was in the season, the bowl season, people thought that Troy had kind of gotten screwed. Like, oh, we are the conference champions. Yeah. We got this terrible bowl.
It was like at 11 o'clock on a Friday. Like it was not a good time for television. But
speaking on behalf of someone who was pretty heavily buzzed in downtown Orlando for that 11 o'clock kick, it was a great time. But what happens is people lose track of, like, because New Orleans Bowl used to always be the premier bowl.
Yeah, that was the
Sun
Cure Bowl.
Yep. Yeah. The Cure Bowl now has the first pick. So really, what you want to say every year going into the season is we're going to go to the Cure Bowl. That just hasn't kind of taken root yet. What I'd like to see, any bowl, I think. Troy fans are not going to be happy if we go to the Camellia Bowl just because it's so many Troy alums are in Montgomery. It's not Montgomery. I know you're not going to believe this. Montgomery is not exactly the most exciting city in the world. Right. But like, I think what I'd like to see happen is like us do well enough to be able to fill like one of those kind of outside slots. Like a lot of times a Sun Belt team will end up in the Birmingham Bowl. Mm-hmm. And now while that's not geographically exciting, obviously we have a lot of alums in Birmingham too. The one exciting thing is you get an SEC opponent. So you'd have a chance for Troy to one Lindy's, I think, predicted us to go to the Birmingham Bowl to play Mississippi State. That would be incredibly exciting. There are a lot of Troy alums that are also degree holders from Mississippi State or are married to Mississippi State alums. Yeah. You work with Mississippi State alums. So, it would be a lot of fun. And you also see a huge amount of success usually for the group of five because we're still fighting. The group of five is still fighting in bowl season. Bowl season still means something to us. Whereas like a team like Mississippi State, you might see guys start to, take plays off or I'm not really interested in playing. I'm worried about my transfer status or my draft status. And so a lot of times you can come in and win a game like that. And it would be a special memory for Troy because we, one of our very first Power 5 wins was against Mississippi State in a rainstorm up in Starkville. So I would love to see something like that happen, but really any type of bowl that we get to go to, Troy fans realize now, thanks to all the terrible Chip Lindsey years, how lucky you are to get to go to a bowl game. So if you get invited to one, buy your tickets and book your hotel room and say, I can't wait to go to Cleveland or wherever the bowl is, because you can't get picky in this sport. You just got to celebrate every single win and every single bowl, and that'll make your guys work harder. What about you, Bat? I know I've really thrown chum in the water for you, Bat.
Oh yeah, you're just letting it get going. Yeah, that'd be a great game. I'd be excited to see that one again. You hit the nail on the head, and I'm still in that position. I think the New Orleans Bowl is the premier bowl for the Sun Belt. I still think that, even though it's the second dibs now, right? Is that how that goes? Yes. Like ESPN gets first dibs and they give it to the Pure Bowl, and then New Orleans gets two, and then it divvies back out to ESPN the rest of the way. So I still think New Orleans Bowl is the premier bowl. So I'd like to say that we're going to the New Orleans Bowl, and what's become the thing for them now is they'll pick the Louisiana school that made it in. Right. That's what, because it makes good money, and I understand that. But I think a destination game that's not Orlando on Friday at 11 o'clock would be cool. Like the Myrtle Beach Bowl, that was kind of on the docket there for a while for us last year. That was something we had our sights on. I think that'd be cool. Because that's somewhere we don't typically get to go unless you're going to watch Coastal, which, let's be real, who's going to watch Coastal? So I think that'd be cool for us. What's the other one that's out there in Texas? Is it the Frisco Bowl? Yeah, the Frisco Bowl. I think that would be cool. There are plenty of options for us. But as long as it's a bowl game, at the end of the day, I think I'm going to be happy that we're going and we're doing this, whether it's in Montgomery, Frisco, Orlando, or Myrtle Beach.
Hey, I say nothing, wrong with that. Hopefully, it's the best of the best for you guys, and hopefully you guys have a great season. But which I'm sure you could. And of course, I got the notification, has nothing to do with Troy, but Trey Lance being rumored to be traded out of San Francisco 49ers. For all you NFL lovers, there you go. That's going to listen in. So nice. Trey Lance on the hot seat. But anyway, more importantly, Troy football, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know these guys, listen to the podcast. Great stuff. Guys, it was a fun show. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having us, man. I mean, this is great, and we invite all the you're a big Sooners fan. You're going to need something else to watch. Oklahoma doesn't play every week. Become a halftime Troy fan and watch the Trojans.
Absolutely.
I promise you, under John Summerall, we are always fun to watch. I can't promise you a win, but I can promise you we're going to be fun and we're going to fight.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do. So, and that probably reminds you a little bit of OU. We welcome everybody aboard. And I don't think we have Oklahoma on our schedule anytime in the next 10 years. They make these schedules so far out. But if we do, we are definitely going to return the favor and get you back on the pod and let you, you can ride a wagon around while you record with us, or, yell Boomer Sooner, whatever you need to do, to get excited. We will let you do it. Because we would love to have that opportunity. But thank you so much for having us on your awesome podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having us. And like he said, if there's anybody out there that's looking for another team to maybe watch in your downtime, come take a look at the Trojans. We're doing some great things, and we're taking care of business here in the Sun Belt.
No, I'd definitely be watching. And that's a wrap on this week's show. Like I said, college football just around the corner. We're just T-minus, I believe, now 2 weeks, if that, and we're ready to kick things off. Without further ado, hopefully, first off, Bird, your other co-host of the Troy Boyz podcast, hopefully he feels better quick for you guys and for him personally, because, yeah. Trojan Joe.
I think it was the bird flu, man.
The puns never end.
Trojan Joe Seabass of the Troy Boyz podcast. Give them a listen. You won't be disappointed. And as they said, give Troy a watch this season, and you probably won't be disappointed either. If anything, if you love football, you're going to do it anyway because we said so. All the way from Oklahoma City, you've been listening to the Air Raid Attack podcast. We'll see you all same time, same place next week. Have a great week, and we'll see you then.